11-year-old Carter Cross Jr. wrapped his hand around the tie hugging his throat and tugged. In the car on the way from the church, the man on the radio said it was 106 degrees, hottest day of the year. Sweating up his Sunday suit, Carter thought he'd die. His chest squeezed like the time his cousin Troy knocked him to the ground with a Bruce Lee kick and sat on him to steal the quarters his grandmother had given him. He pulled a little harder, and the stupid thing popped loose. His arm jerked, and the clipped-on fabric flew to the crumbs of dirt skirting the pit in front of him. Mama's elbow jabbed him in the shoulder, twice. The motion jarred him, but didn't get to him through the thick pad of his jacket. She didn't look at him. She didn't even drop her chin in his direction. She rubbed her swollen belly and stared forward at the hole large enough for the box inside it, the fancy box that didn't look big enough. I went back and forth on whether I was going to have prologues for this series. There's a lot of rules, and a lot of people think prologues are bullshit. You shouldn't have them. You don't always see prologues in contemporary. Sometimes you do see prologues and things like that in historical romance. But because this series ties back to a bunch of things that happened in the past, and each book is going to be sort of influenced by things that happened, whether it's a couple of decades ago or many, many decades ago, I decided that I wanted to have a little piece of history in each prologue that starts off each book. And because this first book is Carter Cross's story, I wanted to flash back to his childhood. He's such a cocky, arrogant, nice guy. He's a great guy, but he's very full of himself and sure of himself. I wanted to show him when he was younger, and kind of how he got to be this sort of control your emotions, just take charge of situations, man of the house guy that he kind of is throughout the book. And you see kind of a little bit of how he got that way in this scene at his father's funeral, as he's looking at this fancy box that doesn't seem big enough to contain all that his father was to him and to his family. As the prologue goes on, you see his uncle kind of coming and telling him, you got to be a little man, you can't cry. So it's kind of the introduction of that form of masculinity where he's not allowed to show his emotions. But there's some critical scenes that happen in the book when you get the book that kind of reveal Carter being more emotional, or being given permission to be more emotional. That ties to the development of his relationship with Nisha, who's the heroine in the book. The other thing the prologue does is it introduces you just a little bit to one vision of his grandfather, trying to assert some presence in his life, which he was never able to do while he was alive, but he certainly does in the first few chapters of the book, when he decides to give the company and a bunch of money over to these descendants from Carter Sr. that he's never acknowledged before.